I think one of the most important books to read in our current age is Douglas Murray's The Madness of Crowds. This is an excerpt. Um, I just want you to listen to just this short bit, but I think it touches on a very important point in what we are discussing in our modern age and some of these issues that keep cropping up again and again, especially in regards to immigration. So let's just roll it.
We are trying to run several programs at once. On the one hand, there is the program which declares the world to be a place where a well-lived life consists of appreciating something from every culture, and indeed making it easier to access those cultures. On the other hand, we are running another program at the same time, which declares that cultural boundaries may only be crossed under certain conditions. Not only has this second program not been finished, but the job of writing it, appears to be open to absolutely anybody who wants to take it over. There is also a program which recognizes that race and culture are not the same thing, and yet another, running concurrently, that says they are so much the same thing that encroaching on somebody else's culture is an act of racist aggression or appropriation. Underneath this is a matter of such explosive danger that it is perhaps no wonder it is kept deeply submerged. It is a question we do not ask because we have already decided what the answers cannot be. That question is whether race is a hardware or a software issue. In the past, of which National Geographic and other enterprises feel some rightful shame, race was thought to be the most hardware issue of all. What race someone came from defined them, often to the exclusion and detriment of all else. As the 20th century progressed, a more enlightened realization grew, which was that race may be important, but it was not unbridgeable.
What he says here is so true. You have contradicting and oppositional viewpoints and attitudes as to what culture means in relation to race and what race means in relation to culture, and how, if you're going to be a pluralistic society, how do you intertwine those things? It's so perfectly stated the way he says. You have competing running programs, and whenever you have competing running programs on the same device, your device will crash.
People could be as much a part of another culture or people as they liked, so long as they wanted to be, and immersed themselves in it in a spirit of gratitude and love. There were caveats in the later 20th century, such as a recognition that this path could only allow traffic to move in one direction. An Indian may become distinctly British, but a white British man could not become an Indian. The boundaries of what is or is not possible here shift subtly but continuously.
The final thing he says here, there's so much truth in that, and I relate to it very much, being an American who has moved here to India. And yes, Indians have been generous, they've been welcoming, they've been very kind to me in my 20-year stay here in India, over 20 years now. However, I will never be an Indian, and I know that when I look at somebody like Sonia Gandhi, one of the leaders of the Congress Party, who is Italian by birth, but she married an Indian man, Gandhi. She converted to Hinduism. She speaks perfect Hindi these days. She's done everything. She became an Indian citizen, but she is still considered an outsider. She is still, to much of the populace, considered the Italian woman, not an Indian. And she will never be an Indian. And I know the same is true with me. I don't know if I want to bridge that gap, and I'll get into that in a future video.
An Indian may become distinctly British, but a white British man could not become an Indian. The boundaries of what is or is not possible here shift subtly but continuously.
An Indian man can move to Britain, he can move to the UK, and by and large be considered a British citizen if he adapts British manners and British culture and seems to support the country. He can even become prime minister, as in witnessed in the current prime minister, Rishi Sunak. The same cannot be said of somebody coming to India, because India is a very strong cultural force. So when I talk about this exclusion of foreigners in India, I'm not necessarily saying it even in a bad way, because there's something to be said about a strong nationalism and a strong national identity that is based on culture, and yes, is based partially upon race. And I will talk about this in a future video.